Most GMC trucks don't die from bad engines. They die from owners skipping simple habits. These habits cost nothing, but they decide if your truck dies at 150,000 or runs past 500,000. Here's the list. Habit number 1, change your oil every 5,000 miles, not 10,000. Let's start with the foundation of every high-mileage GMC. Your owner's manual probably says you can go 7,500 or even 10,000 miles between oil changes. GM's Oil Life Monitor might tell you the same thing. And technically, with modern synthetic oil, you can push those intervals without immediate consequences. But here's what the manual doesn't tell you. Those intervals are designed for ideal conditions: light driving, moderate temperatures, no towing, no short trips, no idling in traffic. That's not how most people drive their GMCs. If you tow anything, even occasionally, your oil breaks down faster. If you do a lot of short trips where the engine never fully warms up, moisture and fuel contaminate your oil. If you live in a hot climate like Texas or Arizona, heat accelerates oil degradation. If you idle in traffic, your oil is working without the cooling benefit of airflow. Under these real-world conditions, oil that looks fine at 7,000 miles is already losing its protective properties. I've talked to mechanics who've torn down high-mileage GM engines, the ones that made it past 300,000 miles with clean internals. Their owners changed oil every 5,000 miles or less. The ones with sludge, worn bearings, and scored cylinders, they followed the Oil Life Monitor religiously. The 5.3 and 6.2-liter engines are especially sensitive to oil quality because of the active fuel management system. AFM puts extra stress on the lifters and camshaft. Clean oil is the only thing protecting those components from premature wear. An oil change costs $45 to $70 DIY or $85 to $150 at a dealer. Doing it every 5,000 miles instead of 10,000 adds maybe $150 per year to your maintenance costs. An engine rebuild costs $8,000 to $12,000. The math is simple. Change your oil every 5,000 miles. Use a quality synthetic that meets Dexos specification. And don't trust the Oil Life Monitor if you want your GMC to hit 500,000 miles. Habit number 2. Change transmission fluid every 60,000 miles. If oil is the lifeblood of your engine, transmission fluid is the lifeblood of your drivetrain. GM markets many of their transmissions as sealed for life with fluid that never needs to be changed. The 6L80, 6L90, 8-speed, and 10-speed transmissions all came with this claim from the factory. Here's what lifetime fluid actually means. It'll last until the warranty expires. After that, you're on your own. Transmission fluid breaks down over time. It absorbs heat, collects metal particles from normal wear, and loses its friction modifiers. When the fluid degrades, your transmission shifts harder, runs hotter, and wears faster. I've seen transmissions fail at 120,000 miles because the fluid was never changed. I've also seen transmissions with 300,000 miles that shift like new, because the owner changed the fluid every 60,000 miles. The difference is night and day. For GMC trucks, especially if you tow or haul regularly, 60,000 miles is the sweet spot. If you tow heavy loads frequently, consider dropping that to 45,000 miles. A transmission fluid change costs $150 to $250 DIY or $250 to $400 at a dealer. You'll need Dexron 6 fluid. Don't use universal or aftermarket fluids unless they specifically meet GM's specification. A transmission rebuild costs $3,500 to $6,000. A replacement can run even more. Change your fluid every 60,000 miles. Drop the pan, replace the filter, and refill with fresh Dexron 6. Your transmission will thank you at 300,000 miles. Habit number 3. Flush your coolant every 5 years or 100,000 miles. GM uses DexCool coolant in all their trucks. It's the orange stuff, and it's rated for 5 years or 150,000 miles. Most owners see that rating and think they can ignore their coolant for a decade. That's a mistake. DexCool is a good coolant, but it's not magic. Over time, it becomes acidic. The corrosion inhibitors break down, and once that happens, your cooling system starts eating itself from the inside out. The water pump is usually the first casualty. The impeller corrodes, the bearings wear, and eventually it starts leaking. A water pump replacement costs $400 to $700 at a dealer. Next comes the radiator. Aluminum tubes develop pinhole leaks from internal corrosion. A new radiator runs $600 to $800. Then the heater core. That's the worst one. The entire dashboard has to come out to access it. Labor alone is $800 to $1,200, plus the cost of the part. All of this can be prevented with a coolant flush every 5 years or 100,000 miles, whichever comes first. A coolant flush costs $150 to $250 at a shop. DIY, you're looking at $30 to $50 in coolant and distilled water. One more thing. Never mix Dex Cool with green universal coolant. The two don't play nice together. They form a gel that clogs your entire cooling system. If you need to top off, use Dex Cool only. Habit number 4. Change differential fluid every 50,000 miles. Your GMC's rear differential is one of the hardest working components on the truck, especially if you tow. The differential takes the rotational power from your drive shaft and splits it between the two rear wheels. It's full of gears and bearings that operate under extreme pressure, and all of that is protected by a few quarts of gear oil. Most owners never think about differential fluid. It's out of sight, underneath the truck, and GM doesn't exactly advertise the service interval. But here's what happens when you ignore it. The fluid breaks down and loses its ability to protect the gears. Metal particles accumulate from normal wear. The gears start to whine, the bearings get noisy, and eventually the differential fails completely. A differential rebuild costs $1,500 to $2,500. If you have the larger 11.5-inch rear axle, it can be even more. Changing the fluid is cheap and easy. A shop will charge $150 to $200. DIY costs about $50 to $80 in fluid and a new gasket. Use 75W90 synthetic gear oil that meets GM specification. If you have a limited slip differential, and most GMC trucks do, make sure you add the friction modifier additive. Without it, you'll get chatter and binding when turning. Change your differential fluid every 50,000 miles. If you tow regularly, drop that to 30,000 miles. It's cheap insurance for an expensive component. Habit number 5. Flush power steering fluid every 75,000 miles. Power steering fluid is the forgotten fluid in most maintenance schedules. GM doesn't specify a change interval for power steering fluid. Most owners never touch it, and for a while, that's fine. The system is sealed and the fluid doesn't break down as fast as engine oil or transmission fluid. But over time, power steering fluid absorbs moisture and collects contaminants. The fluid turns dark, it gets thick, and it starts to wear out the pump, rack, and seals. I've seen power steering pumps fail at 150,000 miles because the fluid was never changed. The pump whines, then it leaks, then it fails completely. Replacement cost, $300 to $500. The steering rack is even worse. When contaminated fluid damages the seals, the rack starts leaking. A rack replacement costs $800 to $1,200 in parts and labor. A power steering fluid flush costs $75 to $150 at a shop. DIY is about $20 to $30 in fluid. Do it every 75,000 miles. Your steering will feel smoother, your pump will last longer, and you'll avoid a $1,000 repair down the road. Quick thing, if you're learning something new here, hit subscribe. I put out videos every week to help GMC owners avoid expensive repairs and keep their trucks running past 300,000 miles. Habit number 6, warm up for 30 to 60 seconds, then drive gently. There's an old school belief that you need to warm up your engine for 5 or 10 minutes before driving. That was true for carbureted engines in the 70s and 80s. It's not true for modern fuel-injected GMCs. Extended idling actually causes more harm than good. When your engine idles cold, it runs rich, meaning it injects extra fuel to compensate for the cold air. That excess fuel washes oil off the cylinder walls and dilutes the oil in your crankcase. The right approach: start your engine, let it idle for 30 to 60 seconds while you put on your seatbelt and check your mirrors, then drive gently for the first few minutes. Driving under light load warms up your engine faster than idling. It also warms up your transmission, differential, and wheel bearings, components that don't get any heat while you're sitting in the driveway. The key is gently. Don't floor it from a cold start. Don't rev the engine to redline. Keep it under 3,000 RPM until the temperature gauge reaches normal operating range. This habit costs nothing and adds years to your engine's life. Habit number 7, avoid short trips when possible. Short trips are the silent killer of engines. When you start your GMC, moisture forms inside the engine as a byproduct of combustion. Under normal driving, the engine gets hot enough to evaporate that moisture and burn it off through the PCV system. But on short trips, anything under 10 minutes, the engine never reaches full operating temperature. That moisture stays in the oil. Over time, it causes sludge, corrosion, and accelerated wear. Short trips also mean more cold starts. Every cold start is the hardest moment for your engine. Oil hasn't fully circulated yet. Metal parts haven't expanded to their proper tolerances. Wear happens fastest in those first few seconds. If your daily routine involves a lot of short trips, driving the kids to school, running to the grocery store, quick errands around town, your engine is aging faster than the odometer suggests. The solution isn't always practical, but when you can, combine errands into one longer trip. Take the highway road instead of surface streets. Give your engine time to fully warm up at least once a day. And if short trips are unavoidable, change your oil more frequently, every 4,000 miles instead of 5,000. The extra changes compensate for the extra contamination. Habit number 8, use top-tier fuel only. Not all gasoline is created equal. Top tier is a fuel standard developed by major automakers, including GM, that requires higher levels of detergent additives than the EPA minimum. These additives keep your fuel injectors, intake valves, and combustion chambers clean. Gas stations that meet the top-tier standard include Chevron, Shell, Exxon, Mobil, Costco, and several others. Stations that don't meet the standard, typically cheap off-brand stations, use the bare minimum additives required by law. The difference matters more than you think. AAAA conducted a study that found engines running non-top-tier fuel accumulated 19 times more carbon deposits than engines running top-tier fuel in just 4,000 miles. Carbon deposits cause rough idle, hesitation, reduced fuel economy, and eventually misfires. On GDI engines, which most newer GMCs have, carbon buildup on the intake valves is a major problem that can cost $500 to $800 to clean. Top-tier fuel costs a few cents more per gallon. Over a year, that might add $50 to $75 to your fuel costs. Professional intake valve cleaning costs $500 or more. Use top-tier fuel. Every tank. It's one of the easiest ways to protect your engine. Habit number 9. Clean your MAF sensor every 30,000 miles. The mass airflow sensor sits in your intake tube and measures how much air is entering your engine. Your engine computer uses that data to calculate the correct amount of fuel to inject. When the MAF sensor gets dirty, and it will over time, it sends incorrect readings to the computer. Your engine runs rich or lean. Fuel economy drops. You might notice hesitation or rough idle. Eventually, you get a check engine light. A lot of owners see that check engine light and replace the MAF sensor. $150 to $300 part. But in most cases, the sensor just needs to be cleaned. MAF sensor cleaner costs $10 to $15 at any auto parts store. The job takes 5 minutes. Remove the sensor from the intake tube, spray it with the cleaner, let it air dry, and reinstall. Do this every 30,000 miles as preventive maintenance. You'll keep your fuel economy optimized and avoid unnecessary parts replacements. One warning: only use MAF sensor cleaner. Don't use carburetor cleaner, brake cleaner, or any other solvent. Those can damage the delicate sensor element. Habit number 10. Replace your air filter every 20,000 to 30,000 miles. Your engine needs to breathe. The air filter is what keeps dirt, dust, and debris out of your intake system. A clogged air filter restricts airflow. Your engine has to work harder to pull in air. Fuel economy drops, power decreases, and in severe cases, the engine can run rich because it's not getting enough air to match the fuel being injected. Most GMC owners check their air filter when they remember, which isn't often enough. The rule of thumb is every 20,000 to 30,000 miles, depending on your driving conditions. If you drive on dirt roads in dusty climates or in heavy traffic, lean toward 20,000. If you're mostly highway driving in clean air, 30,000 is fine. A quality air filter costs $20 to $40. Replacement takes 2 minutes. No tools required on most GMC trucks. Don't cheap out on filters. The $3 filter at the discount store uses inferior filter media that either restricts airflow too much or doesn't filter well enough. Stick with AC Delco, K, and N, or other reputable brands. Habit number 11. Grease your suspension and steering every 30,000 miles. Modern GMC trucks have sealed ball joints and tie rod ends that are lubricated for life. That phrase again, for life. By now you know what that really means. Sealed joints don't stay sealed forever. The boots crack, dirt gets in, grease gets out. And once a ball joint or tie rod end runs dry, it wears out fast. Some GMC trucks, especially heavy-duty models, still have grease fittings on the suspension components. If yours does, use them. A grease gun and a tube of chassis grease costs $20. 15 minutes under the truck every 30,000 miles can double the life of your suspension components. If your truck has sealed joints, inspect the boots regularly. Look for cracks, tears, or grease leaking out. Catching a torn boot early means you can replace just the boot, a $20 part. Ignoring it means replacing the entire ball joint or tie rod end, $200 to $400 per corner. Suspension components don't fail gracefully. When a ball joint goes, your wheel can literally fall off the truck. That's not an exaggeration. I've seen it happen. A $200 ball joint replacement is a lot cheaper than a totaled truck. Habit number 12. Inspect and replace your serpentine belt before it fails. Your serpentine belt drives everything: alternator, power steering pump, water pump, AC compressor. When it breaks, your truck stops. Most serpentine belts last 60,000 to 100,000 miles, but they don't fail with warning lights or error codes. They just snap. When that happens while you're driving, you lose power steering immediately. Your battery stops charging, and most critically, your water pump stops circulating coolant. Your engine can overheat in minutes. If you catch it in time and pull over, you're looking at a tow truck and a belt replacement, maybe $300 to $400 total. If you don't catch it and your engine overheats, you're looking at a warped head, a blown head gasket, or a seized engine. That's $3,000 to $12,000. Inspect your belt every oil change. Look for cracks on the ribbed side, fraying on the edges, or a glazed, shiny appearance. If you see any of these signs, replace the belt before it fails. A serpentine belt costs $25 to $50. The tensioner, which you should replace at the same time, adds another $40 to $80. Total DIY cost, under $150. Total peace of mind, priceless. Habit number 13. Use OEM or quality aftermarket parts only. When something breaks on your GMC, you have a choice: cheap parts or quality parts. The cheap parts are tempting. That water pump on Amazon is $40. The AC Delco version is $120. Why pay 3 times more for the same thing? Because it's not the same thing. Cheap parts are made with inferior materials, looser tolerances, and less quality control. They might fit. They might work for a while, but they fail sooner, often causing collateral damage when they do. I've seen cheap water pumps fail at 20,000 miles, taking the timing cover gasket with them. I've seen cheap ball joints wear out in 1 year, destroying the tire in the process. I've seen cheap oxygen sensors throw false codes that led to unnecessary repairs. The $30 you save on a cheap part can cost you hundreds or thousands in additional repairs. For critical components, anything in the engine, transmission, cooling system, or suspension, use OEM parts from AC Delco or quality aftermarket brands like Moog, Timken, or Dorman. For less critical items like interior trim or accessories, cheaper alternatives are usually fine. Know when to save and when to spend. Your truck's longevity depends on it. Habit number 14. Don't ignore small leaks. A small leak is a future big problem. I see this constantly. Owner notices a few drops of oil under the truck, or a small puddle of coolant, or a wet spot on the power steering pump. They check the fluid level, top it off, and keep driving. Months go by. The leak gets a little worse. They keep topping off. Eventually, the leak becomes a failure: a blown gasket, a seized pump, an overheated engine. Here's the truth. Leaks don't fix themselves. They only get worse. And the damage they cause while you're monitoring them is often worse than the original leak. A small oil leak from a valve cover gasket costs $150 to $300 to fix. Ignore it, and oil drips onto your exhaust manifold. A fire hazard, or it contaminates your serpentine belt, causing it to slip and fail. A small coolant leak from a hose clamp costs $20 to fix. Ignore it, and you lose coolant while driving. Your engine overheats. Now you're looking at a $3,000 head gasket job. When you see a leak, fix it. Don't wait for it to become convenient. Don't tell yourself you'll get to it next month. The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets. Habit number 15. Keep your fuel tank above 1/4. This is the habit I promised you at the beginning. The one that costs nothing, takes 5 seconds, and protects your engine more than almost anything else. Keep your fuel tank above 1/4 full, always. Here's why this matters. Your fuel pump sits inside your fuel tank, submerged in gasoline. That fuel does 2 critical jobs. It cools the pump and lubricates the pump's internal components. When you run your tank low, below 1/4, the pump isn't fully submerged. It runs hotter. The bearings wear faster, and all the sediment and debris that settles at the bottom of your tank gets sucked into the pump and sent toward your fuel filter and injectors. Over time, this habit destroys fuel pumps. Instead of lasting 250,000 miles, they fail at 120,000. A fuel pump replacement on a GMC Sierra costs $600 to $900. On a Yukon or larger SUV, you're looking at $800 to $1,100. But the damage doesn't stop at the pump. That sediment clogs your fuel filter faster, reducing flow to your injectors. Your injectors get contaminated, causing rough running and misfires. In severe cases, debris can damage the injectors themselves, and a set of injectors costs $800 to $1,500. All of this is preventable. When your gauge hits a 1/4 tank, fill up. Don't push it to empty. Don't see how far you can go on the fuel light. Just fill up. It costs nothing. It takes 5 seconds at the gas station, and it's the difference between a fuel system that lasts 500,000 miles and one that fails at 100,000. Those are the 15 habits that separate GMCs that last from GMCs that don't. None of them are complicated. None of them are expensive. But together, they're the reason some trucks hit 500,000 miles while others get scrapped at 150. If you want to learn more about keeping your GMC on the road, check out my video on the 12 mistakes that cost GMC owners thousands of dollars. And if you're shopping for a used GMC, watch my video on the model years everyone avoids that are actually gold mines. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.